Okay, so after watching that, it's pretty clear that I'm terrible at putting the ball away. This is honestly something I've been bad at ever since I started playing pickleball. In fact, almost every group that I play in, the joke is constantly that I can't put a ball away. So to help try and deal with this, I decided to take another lesson with Amrik, because not only does he have phenomenal counters, his overhead is also completely ridiculous. Now, I'm not gonna lie, this lesson was honestly pretty humbling and embarrassing to take. Not because Amrik did anything wrong, but because I realized just how bad my overhead actually was. There's so many things related to proper technique that I either didn't know or just wasn't doing. So trying to implement all of them inside of the lesson was very difficult, but I'm sure with enough time I'll get there. But in the moment it was like, geez Louise, I'm really bad at this. And if you are any reasonable tennis player or used to be a reasonable tennis player, like 4-5 and above, maybe even 4-0 and above, you might not even need this video. Most tennis players already have great overheads, but if you came from pickleball and never really had any formal overhead training, then you'll probably want to watch this video because I learned quite a bit. So anyways, enjoy the video.
I'll start with this. What do you think is the issue?
Yeah. Part of it, I think, is I'm using too much of my arm and not enough of the rest of my body.
Okay.
So I think that's part of where the power comes from. And then I think I'm generally bad. If the ball goes a little deeper than just here, I don't think I do a good enough job getting back. Like, I think I'm taking it like back here rather than like the ball's here.
Those are good. So I would say an overhead is simple, but it's also hard, just like the counter thing, right? So there's 4 parts to your overhead. Okay. Now, one of them that you identified, which is I got to use hips, right? So talking about who can hit a hard overhead, who can't, a large percentage, I'd say 70, 80%, it's from 2 parts. One, your hips, okay? Because that's where you're getting most of your muscle, because if you look at me, not the most built guy, right? But I'm using every single ounce of my body to just put all of my weight into that motion. You're doing is what a lot of pickleball players, or I should just say non-tennis players do, is you're using the wrist / forearm snap rather than the shoulder. So in a tennis overhead or even a tennis serve, people that have good serves or good overheads are, can you do just very simple motion?
Yeah.
Can you toss a ball to me?
Okay.
Okay? That exactly is the issue.
Okay.
So yeah, you can toss a ball, but you're not tossing it like a football or a baseball player is supposed to. Pronation is what you're lacking, because right now you're just going, that's fine, but that's just this motion rather than here. Now, it's not just this part, it's my shoulder coming back and my shoulder rotating with this pronation motion, right? So for you, yeah, when you say open stance, it's just this. This never happens because this is super awkward to do. Like, what, you know, compared to if you turn, now it's much easier for me to do that pronation motion and then gets all of it going. So the 4 parts, hips 1, okay? The shoulder drop back is 2. The pronation is 3, which is that wrist. And then the last part, which you do a pretty good job, is that wrist motion, right? Now, even though this is all the motion, the reason you shanked a couple and a good chunk of pickleball people mishit it, this hand is equally as important as this hand. When that ball comes up, if you just try to wing it here, it's hard in 3-dimensional region of space. Compared to if this is up here, it's gonna help you guide and make that contact point much simpler.
I think I have noticed too, watching some of my videos, the hand will go up, but it also goes down very quickly.
So
it's initially and then it's down right away.
Yep, and then you're just winging it, and then it's just doing this, and you're like, I hope to God I make contact. Rather than I'm here and I finish through that motion. The longer you keep this, the more likely you're gonna make contact dead center of your paddle or wherever you're looking for.
I see, makes sense.
So in all of this, sure, we can hit 100 overheads. If you're trying to improve your overhead, you should be working. It's which aspect of that overhead do you wanna work on? I'll start with the simplest one. It's literally just throwing a ball back and forth. So inside of your wrist, when you start, is facing me, right? Or facing whatever part of my head. And by the time I finish, it's gonna face outward to, if I'm a righty, it's gonna face to the right. If I'm a lefty, facing to the left, if you've done that proper pronation. Sure. So inside or to the left-ish, by the time you finish, out to the right-ish, okay? If you've done that, that means you've done this full extended of your elbow motion. If you haven't, you've just done this, right? And it's gonna point right to me rather than pointing that way. Good, perfect. Good, nice.
I must not have been pronating very hard because I can already, finishing here feels very foreign.
Correct. If we're doing the pronate portion to it, right, it's gonna be very simple. That one, you'll just stay flat. You don't even have to worry about the rotating the hips portion, okay? And you can do the left arm, you don't have to. I'd suggest trying to do it, okay? All you're gonna do is when you start, okay, wherever you are, this paddle, okay, or slash this inside wrist is gonna face you slash behind you. When you finish, are you just finishing here, okay? So if you're finishing correctly, it will go either flat down or this way. Now, if I'm hitting anywhere middle to my right side, it is going this way. If I'm going that way, that's the only time it'll go probably flat. So what most people don't do is they're like, oh, well, let me just start like I normally would. Let me get ready for my match and then do the whole thing. That's too many parts to work on one particular aspect, right? I
see.
So if I were to teach you, right, it's this. We start wherever, cut off all the other motion, start where proper pronation starts and where proper pronation ends. That's all we care about.
Got it.
Right? Okay, good.
Yep.
That's perfect wrist. Good. Now, when you finished, you went here, right? That's fine. But if I'm going fully extending with the pronation, when I pronated with tossing that ball, was there any bend in my wrist or in my elbow at all?
No.
Okay. So when you tossed it, there was no bend when you finished. Why is there a bend in that one?
I finished with a bend?
Yeah.
I actually didn't even notice.
Okay,
so.
let's try it again. Good. Again, if you catch and fall, who cares? But when you finish, that last one where you're fully extended, that's what we want. Good. Nice.
Closer. Also, I can just tell literally just from this, even without this, these are like harder than I normally
Because
hit
the pronation, that wasn't there before. Because you were just snapping wrist on that first couple that when we were warming up.
Like these few alone are like a noticeable jump.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Good. So the last three, when we did this arm is fully extended, where there is no bend in that elbow. That is how I know that you fully have attempted to pronate.
I see.
Because if you haven't, you'll do this.
I see.
Where,
there's still a
there's
slight
only
bend.
some here where you could have still kept going with that pronation motion. So let's get to that next one, because I think that's what you're gonna need to do, is where is my contact point, and how does this left hand basically help me with, okay? So I'll start again with
it's funny because I've also never shanked these like this, so this is very
Again,
new.
your contact now is a little bit delayed, because your other one, it's very simple. It's here, here, right? You don't have to time it very hard, because from back here, now I have to cross all this region of space to try to time it perfectly. So yeah, there are times to do this one, the one that you do, there are times to do the put away one. Similar to how we toss the ball, this other drill requires no paddle, okay? So when we do this, I'll start in the two progressions. The one easy progression is you'll stay flat, and then when you're ready to hit, you want to get your arm up. Now, as I do this, okay, it's going to involve the pronation and the left. Okay, well, where's the pronation coming in? You're not actually pronating, but you're prepping your pronation. So when that ball goes up, I go to here. So left arm goes up, but then so does my right arm coming back here. Okay, now, obviously you're not gonna have a ball, so it's gonna look like this. It's just empty arm back here, somewhere on the back side of your head, okay? Now the first couple, just catch it. Good. Good. Where did you catch it?
Like here-ish.
Okay, what is here-ish? Describe
like
it
to my left of my head.
Okay, so it's either square at your head or slightly to the left of my head, right? Every time you hit overhead,
is always...
You're like back here.
I see.
Right? And when you do that, that forces you
so
to
you would probably either straight or to the right of your head, right? Is where you would want it?
Straight ahead is ideal.
Okay.
As dead center to your right shoulder / middle of your face, you have this little margin where that ball should land if you're gonna hit your most powerful and consistent overhead. As you get too much to the right side of your right shoulder, that your timing's gonna be off, and then to the left side of the center of your head, your timing's gonna be off.
I was gonna say, too far left would probably be the worst scenario. I mean, because you're like...
well, you're just gonna be falling in this direction, or you'll be falling in this direction, which both are bad, right? Ideally, you just want it within this little margin. Rarely did I see it dead center of you.
Yeah, I have no idea why it doesn't match up.
The reason you don't, you're winging it with just this arm.
Sure.
The second this left arm comes into play, you track here, because it's natural to catch here. It's not natural to catch it way out here. Okay? All right, so one more time, let's just see where you catch it. See if you notice that too. Okay, good. What did your right arm do?
Did I probably wasn't putting, I didn't put it up, did I?
Right, so again, when we do this drill, there are two parts to it. The first part, just the left part. Now, can you do both?
Both, yeah, that should be fine. That should be fine.
Good, now this, is this getting ready for my pronate?
Was
elbow up.
Okay, got it.
Right? Elbow up is you ready for your pronate. There you go. What's the point of this left hand?
To track the ball.
Okay, so when does that tracking start?
Immediately.
The second I hit. Right now, you're here, you see it in the air, you're like, oh, now I should. No, the second I've made contact, I know it's a lob, I track with this. So at least from tennis, one of the drills that you do when you're practicing your overheads is, the second it's fed, you do this, and you're just rotating in the air with both arms up.
I see.
Right? So
you start that way?
You start right here.
I see.
Right? Instead of me having to
and then
wait,
everything.
and at the last second, the timing of this is way too hard, right? Just like all the other shots that we do, the shorter and less variables that I have, the easier it is for me to execute that shot. Let's hit, okay? Again, I don't care about the rest. Kitchen fault, miss it, make it, I don't care, okay?
Oh.
Okay, that was fine. Where did this arm start, do you know?
I don't.
So if we were to get those videos, you're here.
Got it.
Rather than
I just got to come back
here.
further. Got it.
Good, there you go.
Yep.
There, that was perfect. Nice, that was good. Now, pronating looks good, left arm looks good, take back, not so good.
I can tell this is just I never did that, or went this far back.
But again, if you're trying to get power, that's what you need.
Got it.
Right? Nice. Oh yeah, too good.
I can see why this has to be broken down into steps, because I can feel how many things I'm like, is this back, is this up? Am I moving, am I doing this?
I mean, I've told you this multiple times, is racket sports, it seems easy from an outsider perspective. As you get to higher levels, you're like, oh my goodness, I didn't know a counter had 10 things. I didn't know overhead had 6 things. You know, like, that's the simplest shot. Like, every single person has hit an overhead. That's the easiest thing to do, smash. But are you hitting a good overhead that involves, you know, your pronating, your racket back, your left arm up, your hips, like all of it, right?
Yeah, because I can literally, like, even just some of these, I'm like, holy cow, this feels even worse than before. I can tell it will get better, but the amount of things you're thinking about just to make it happen.
So that's why I said I'm breaking this down by different components.
Yep.
Now, when we get to the end of this, in order for you to get better at your particular overhead, you're gonna pick which of those components you think is currently hindering you, right? Because that's what you're gonna fix, and then, you know, 3 weeks from now, 4 weeks from now, you'll add in a different component.
The other things,
okay? Okay, so the last part is probably the main one that you need for the power portion, okay? Which is the hips part is pretty much how you get every single bit of your power, okay? Now, yes, your arm does some, but again, the pronation part is more rather than either the wrist snap, the muscle, whatever it is. A large portion is, can you rotate this? So when we do this, I don't care about all the other portions of the lesson that we just did, okay? I don't care if you shank it, I don't care if you pronate, whatever. Can you start sideways? And when you finish, can you finish with your weight on that front foot? Ideally, maybe even leaning forward if you
finish
can.
balanced on one leg?
Finish balancing on one leg if you're trying to do maximum power, right? So if I'm trying to do full, I'm gonna hit it as hard as I can. I'm going all of my weight here so I can stay, and then I reset. But if I'm not trying to go full power, can I hit, be balanced enough? Freeze. Freeze. Ah, you're falling, right?
I see.
Your weight's not balanced on that one.
I see.
Freeze. Good. Good. Now, those are good, but all of that power, that's the old Chris Olsen power.
Okay.
Okay, it's all arm. Okay. I don't know if you're much of a football watcher, but in NFL, there's a common like joke video that goes around with the Dallas quarterback Dak Prescott. His warm-up videos, he does this. He's like turning his hips every single time, and he like exaggerates this. And as he's doing this, he goes really quick with it, and it looks like he's almost like dancing. That is what creates power. Dak can throw really far because he can do this motion really quickly. When I rotate my hips quick, okay, well, is my arm attached to my hips or my body? Yeah. When it's here, right, this, as I turn quick, what has to happen? My arm has to come fast. So now it's not just my normal arm speed, I've added an extra speed that is this hip speed that's coming into play. Now I've got my hip speed and my hip weight that's gonna allow me to launch it even faster with my arm, right? So the reason these hips are important, it's not just me turning for the sake of turning, it's the speed and the violence that I turn my hips with, okay? So this is where, again, as we do this drill, I might teach you how to do it. Someone that doesn't have great hips or mobility, we're not gonna add this portion to it, right? Because that's where those injuries come into play. You're just hitting with just that slow motion, which, sure, you're using your weight, but it's not adding any speed that goes to that overhead, right?
I see.
So as we do these next ones, once you're here, how quickly can you go from sideways to forward?
I see.
Okay, so the speed portion, that's the hard part.
I see.
And that's where you either need video recordings or you need a drill partner that says, yeah, that's quick or that's not quick, right? There is no magic, oh, I'm doing this fast or not. It's can someone else or something see if it's quick enough, right? And again, that's where those football players, those quarterbacks, they do that over and over and over again because they want to make it as fast as they can. There's no such thing as too fast.
Yeah.
Okay, move your hips as fast as you can, but as you do that, if you're too rushed, your other portions of your overhead now get rushed, right?
Sure.
Because now, can I time my arm coming in at the perfect time? Am I hitting it at the right spot? All of those get messed up.
Got it.
Okay? Turn. Nice.
That was
better. Turn. There, that one was the best one.
Got it.
Quick. Good. That was arm quick, not hips quick.
Not hips quick.
So think of it as when you do this motion, because our whole body's connected, when I turn, inadvertently, whether you realize it or not, your hip is connected to your elbow. Okay, think of it as there's a little elastic rubber band.
Sure.
If this goes quick, okay, if my hip is already gone, that rubber band is now pulling. Basically, that's my rib cage. It's like, this hurts unless this comes through.
So the hips should go first.
The hips will always go first. So similarly to other sports. So that's what I love about pickleball or tennis. All of these shots that you hit, you can translate from a different sport. So golf. When a golfer golfs, what goes first? Arms? It's this.
Yeah.
They go boom, and then as this hip goes,
Everything
this
else
comes through, right? Same exact concept with your overhead. The quicker this goes, your hip can't go and your arm stays back here, otherwise you're ripping something right here.
Yeah.
Right? So your arm is attached to it. Instead of thinking arm speed, think hip speed, which will make your arm go faster.
Got it.
So I just wanted to pop in here really quick and explain this hip thing because it's something that I thought I was particularly bad at, and there's a few cues I came up with that just make it a little bit easier for me to get in the habit of using my hips. First, Amrik made a great point. If you turn your hips far enough, your paddle's gonna drop and eventually your arm wants to follow with it. And if you want to try this yourself, just try standing sideways, put both your arms up, and then only turn your hips, but try to leave your shoulder in place. Eventually that paddle head is going to drop as if you were trying to scratch your back. So this is a good cue for me when I'm out on the court to know if I'm using my hips. Because if that paddle head never drops, then I probably didn't use my hips. And a lot of times before this lesson, I think I was opening my stance up so I was square with the court, and then I would just swing with my arm. So there was never any paddle head drop, and I really was never using my hips. So the nice thing about this is you can practice this at home, just turning your hips constantly and seeing if your arm drops.
Good, there you go.
I can feel that.
Did you fence that one? You fenced a Franklin, dang. Nice.
Okay.
Hip, 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 hip. Nice, good, Chris.
It definitely helps to think move this first.
Correct.
Because I think before I was thinking so much about my arm that the hip just came
correct
as a byproduct.
And I purposely didn't tell you this, but if you watch those videos of the last couple, when your hip comes first, do you know what happens to your arm? This automatically goes up and this drops because that motion causes this to drop, so you inadvertently start pronating earlier anyway. Okay, and which adds to that extra piece of power that you do. So those are better and better, but is that the fastest that your hips can move? No.
No.
Okay, so as you do this, you just have to have more and more repetition where you either need cameras or you need a drilling partner that says quicker, 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 right? And there are measurable things of how quick you're moving this that tells you if you're hitting it hard enough or not. When you hit with this, so I've had a couple of matches where I've just had long playing days or tournaments been long or I've hurt my shoulder. I can still hit the crap out of the overhead because when I think, oh, I'm hurt, okay, let me use my hips, let my arm just be like loose coming through, okay? The biggest misconception of like the intermediate players, overhead to them means grip strength 10, everything in your body at 10, contraction, swing it as hard as I can. No, because when I swing and people that hit it really hard swing, this is as loose as possible. The only thing that is contracting or moving with a lot of speed is your hips and that shoulder. Otherwise, my arm, if my grip strength is probably like a 2 out of 10, 3 out of 10. It's very, very minimal. It's just hard enough so that when I hit it, I don't lose my paddle out of my hand, right? There, look at that, fenced it. There, good. Hips on that one though. That was all arm.
Right, got it.
Good. Hit quicker, hit quicker, hit quicker. Good, nice, Chris.
Okay, so while you guys enjoy some slow-mo clips of Amrik hitting his overheads, I just wanted to pop in here and talk about some things that I think are good takeaways for you. My guess is if you don't have a good overhead, you're probably bad at one of the 4 things, or if you're like me, you are probably bad at doing all 4 of the things. What I have found with drilling overheads is you really need to segment these into smaller steps when you practice, because at least for me, it was very hard to do all 4 steps and do the entire motion to work on my overhead. It's much better for me to isolate a movement and then only work on that. So like earlier in the lesson, Amrik said, start with the paddle head dropped below your back and then finish and pronate properly. You don't have to hip turn. You don't even really have to put your left arm up, though we both would suggest that you do that. And this way you can isolate one specific movement, work on dropping the paddle head back, and then pronating at the end. Another drill that we did, but it didn't quite make it into the full video, is just having someone toss a ball, or you could even do it yourself. Just take a ball, toss it up with your left hand, and then immediately start tracking the ball on the court and stay underneath it. So you'll obviously want to toss it a little bit behind you, in front of you, or to the side, so it forces you to move. But now this forces you to shuffle laterally, backwards, forwards in that motion with both your arms up ready to hit an overhead. This can be good for getting your left hand to help you track the ball better. And then of course, just a minute ago, you heard us talk about the hips, which is relatively easy to work on at home. You can kind of just focus on isolating your hips and getting those to move before the rest of your body. So I think there's smaller ways to break these things down that make it a lot easier to drill and implement later. But anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I'll catch you in the next one.